This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, and Tim's joining us. Hello, sir, from Portland. Thank you.
Tim. Hi, Gary. Hi, Kurt. How are you? How's it going, man?
Thanks for taking the time to join with us. We got a few announcements to go through, some news, and then we will be joined by Bergen in a couple of minutes. He said he's been on calls all day, so he wanted to grab a snack and just message him when we're ready. So let's see here, as people start to log in. Wayne, hello, sir.
Wayne's outside.
Welcome, Wayne. Glad you could join us.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah, everyone drink up. It's after hours at this point.
And a long weekend.
Okay, so maybe another minute or two just for everyone to still sign on, and then we will get going from there. Let me mute the background noise that we're getting there. Here, I think that's coming from you.
Oh, background noise?
Yep. Oh, hold on a second.
I'll be right back.
Miss Lowe, this curtain. Hmm? Miss Lowe, this curtain. Okay, well, if someone is trying to call me to log in, they're not talking on the phone. It's okay. We can go ahead and get started, and if more people join in, we'll just get going there. So, Sarah, Lisa, can you hear me? Michael, can you hear me? Mary Jane,
Yep.
can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly fine.
Oh, well, hello,
Me
Lisa,
too.
then.
Hi, guys.
Perfect. Well, thank you everyone for joining. Let's make this official. The July member meeting is now underway. So we do have a few things to go through tonight before we delve into our featured guest tonight. So I wanted to touch base on a couple of things we have going on, and I know some of our members are familiar with everything that is going on. First of all, welcome. If this is your first time joining us, we are Klamath Film. We are a 501c3 nonprofit based in Klamath Falls, Oregon. This is our 9th year of existence. My first year as executive director. Obviously, this has been a very strange year for everyone involved, but we are persevering through it, trying to still be a part of film production in the Klamath Basin. Our job is to try to promote and support filmmaking throughout the region, and we do that through a wide variety of ways. I wanted to first say, for anyone who is already a member, thank you, because your membership dollars do help out immensely, and for those who are not, just a quick thing, membership is only $25 a year to join. With it, you get ticket discounts to events. Now, sadly, this year we've had to cancel a few events, but we are doing our absolute best to try to plan some events in the near future, and we are coordinating with the local theaters as best as possible to do that, and we will absolutely do the Klamath Independent Film Festival again some way. We haven't determined yet what exactly that is going to be as far as the structure goes, but we are working on that. So you get ticket discounts. You can also check out film equipment. We have things like this nice little Nikon here that is readily available to check out for our members, or this fantastic Bergen fluid head tripod. We have various camera mounts, like a shoulder mount. We have all sorts of camera gear, which for members is free to check out. So if you are working on a production, or whether it's something pro, or you just want to shoot something in your backyard right now because you're bored out of your mind, we have gear and we can help you out with all sorts of stuff. So if you need the full list, from tripods to recorders to cameras to different lenses, you're welcome to contact me, and my contact information I will have up on my lower third here in a little bit. We also work very hard on trying to make sure that we are connected with any sort of film production that is happening in the region. So we are the official film liaison office for Klamath County. As such, we communicate with any sort of production team that is looking to film here, whether it's commercials, whether it's short films, whether it's feature-length films. We are actively involved in that, and sometimes commercial work comes up from time to time where I may shoot out a message for opportunities for any members who want to pick up a little side job here or there. Some of the things that are upcoming. Earlier today, I was talking with a production company from Santa Monica. They were supposed to come through in March to film an episode for a travel show that they produce. But March was when everything was getting shut down and that got delayed. So now they're coming here July 16th and 17th. They sent me the links to the first 2 episodes. It's a pretty cool show where they partner with a car company, and every episode they highlight a different car and they take someone on a road trip that they've never been on before. So the road trip that's going to feature us goes from San Francisco to Bend. And so they're going to stop in Klamath Falls and film for a couple days and shoot some scenery around the area. And we're going to be helping out with that process. Also, someone who's on the call, Lisa, is going to be coming out here in August to shoot her next short film. And Anna Nicholas, who was our featured guest back in February, she is planning to shoot her next feature-length film here as well as in Bandon in either October or November, kind of seeing how things play out. So we have multiple productions in the works right now, and we're actively involved in that. And when there are opportunities for cast or crew, I will absolutely let our members know about what's coming down the pike. So beyond that, I wanted to announce that we have a new board member. Mark Shapiro has joined us, and we're very glad to have Mark on board. He spent about 10 years working with Leica Studios in Portland. He's a marketing guru, and he now runs his own marketing firm in Portland. And he's worked with Nike, he's worked with a bunch of different brands. He's a film buff, and he comes down to our area often. Even though he lives in Portland, he has friends in Lakeview and Klamath Falls, and he's a big fan of our film festival and what we do. So we're very glad to have Mark on board to help us out going forward. I want to talk a little bit about the Klamath Independent Film Festival. We will be announcing our selections July 10th. We are actively in the review phase right now. We have a programmers meeting this weekend to finalize exactly what films are going to be in and then formulate a schedule, and we will be announcing that. So July 10th, we will announce what films are in. Where the festival is going to be is still TBD. I've had multiple meetings with Ross Ragland Theater, with Pelican Cinemas. I have a conference coming up tomorrow with an online platform that Ashland Independent Film Festival used. We've talked to several other online platforms. We want to try to do the film festival in person. I think there's a lot of value from a social level in bringing all of the various film makers to the Klamath Basin and getting to interact and getting to talk and just mingle. And I know this year especially, I sure miss going to the movies. I don't know about anybody else, but it's been hard to have that disconnect of not being able to sit in the theater with people. So we are going to do our absolute best to still have the festival in person. But if it becomes a safety issue, we will go towards a plan B. So July 10th, we will announce our films. Some of you on the call have seen a lot of the films already because you were judges, and thank you for your volunteer time for doing that. Well, I think we have some fantastic films this year with whatever ends up in the final selection. Really nice variety of stuff that I think will be really entertaining. We just have to figure out how we're going to present that to everyone. So stay tuned on that. I also wanted to announce, let me sit up a little bit, drive-ins. Klamath County is going to be opening up a temporary drive-in movie theater. And now this is something that we had actually discussed as a board, possibly trying to figure out sometime this summer, and it just never came together. But the Ross Ragland Theater and the Klamath County Fairgrounds are going to be showing the Back to the Future trilogy starting tomorrow and then each Friday thereafter. My mistake, July 10th, July 17th, and July 24th is when they're going to do it. So next week. So they're opening up the fairgrounds to do a drive-in movie theater. So fun little social gathering safely within your car. But it's always nice to get people together to be able to watch a film. So if you want to check out the Back to the Future trilogy, I know we've all seen it a bunch, but you know, it's the perfect films. So there's that going on. And there's actually a really interesting article today about all the drive-in theaters that are popping up all over the country. So that nostalgic aspect of films past is kind of coming back to life amidst a global pandemic. Local theaters. So this is the Ross Ragland Theater in Klamath Falls for those of us who are checking in out of town. It is going under some major maintenance right now, which is fantastic to see multiple projects taking place to enhance the historic theater. It was built in the 1930s. It's a 700 plus seat theater. They have figured out a way to reopen. So in July, they're going to be doing theater camps for teens. And we are planning to do an event there in late August, which has not been announced yet because we're still working out the details. But I will say keep your schedule open for Saturday, August 22nd. They've figured out a way to open up their theater with 250 seats. Now that's subject to how things change as far as the governor's mandates for crowd restrictions, but they figured out a way to block rows and limit ticket sales and whatnot to seat 250 people. The Pelican Cinemas in town, they are seating 20%. 20% of their theater is what's being allowed right now, and that's including staff. So they're a bit more minimized, but they have reopened. You may have noticed Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. Pelican Cinema is open again. They're showing early 2020 releases as well as classic films like Jurassic Park and The Goonies, and this is the 35th anniversary year of The Goonies. So check that. That schedule changes each week, but Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, go check out a film. You can do so now. Just word of warning, you must wear a mask to attend a film at Pelican. And all staff are wearing masks and gloves, and they will contact trace before you enter the building, meaning you need to give your name and phone number before you're allowed to enter. But all films are only $5. So enjoy that while you can. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is the fact that we are doing a film camp. We are going to be, and we have a couple grants in place for this, but we are going to be doing a film camp in August 10th through August 16th. This was going to be an in-person camp intended for teens and for people who wanted to learn some of the basics of filmmaking. We're going to have to do it virtually. There's no way that we can do it in person, but we're still going forward with the camp. We're limiting it to 20 participants, but that does include like a family of say 4 or 5 could participate as one participant. And the idea is that each day we're going to be talking about some of the basics of how to going over scripting and filming from home, using things at home like lamps and just your camera on your cell phone, and showing you some of the basics of how to create a script and how to film. And from there, we will every participant will be making their own film at the end of the camp, and we will deem one winner who gets a cash prize, and that film will be included in the Klamath Independent Film Festival this year. So we did post something about it. It was on our newsletter. There's something up on the website about it, but feel free if you are interested in that. For some of our members and participants who have never made a video before but have always wanted to learn how, we're going to try to make it fun. We'll have different guests every day. We've partnered with SOU's film program to present this thing. So more information online for August 10th through August 16th on that. The next thing is getting to our guest. So let me message him and let him know. But before Bergen comes in, does anyone have any sort of announcements or anything that people want to talk about? Any projects? Wayne, I know you just had a project that you were all happy about. You want to tell us what's up?
Well, the first week of the year looked like it was going to be very promising. I was attached to one degree or another to a number of projects. Did get to participate in one student film over at SOU, but then the coronavirus hit and everything shut down. But last week, or weekend before last, oh no, it's almost 3 weeks ago now, I was able to go on a shoot, a trailer for a potential series. Decided to see if that gets picked up. But then also, Tom Cooley, David Reed, and I were part of a short film that I produced. We did the vast majority of the shooting last year, but it's been in editing and needed to get one more shot done, and that again has been on hold because of the coronavirus. But Tom and I completed that last weekend. He's got the editing almost completely done. He had a couple things he had to fix today, and I was hoping he would be on here and give us an update. But nonetheless, that should be available to be viewed very shortly. So I just watched the rough cut and was very excited about it, and hope you guys enjoy it.
Fantastic. Well, we've had an opportunity to show a couple of the films that Wayne has been a part of in past meetings. For those who don't know, Wayne is one of our resident professional actors. He's been in quite a few short films and feature-length films. And I don't know, Wayne, if you want to be a special guest during our film camp to talk about some of the ins and outs of acting, we'd love to have you be a part of that. So
sounds like fun. Let's work on a schedule.
And anyone else have any sort of projects or anything they've been working on that they want to bring up for the group before we get rolling?
Sure. I'm happy that two directors that I am working with right now are back home safe and sound. They were just running across the Midwest with a storm chasing team, trying to capture tornadoes. We're developing a doc for Netflix. So we got a little bit of money to go out there and see what the stories were all about. We're gonna cut it together and send it over there, see what they think. So fingers crossed that we'll get that project off the ground. Start kind of shooting slowly at the end of this year, but then ramp up when storm season hits in April, May.
Will this be your third movie on Netflix, Gary? Or
It'll be the fourth, actually. Well, the
Fourth?
third Netflix original, but the fourth with this team on Netflix. The first one was a project we did on our own, and then they picked up as a licensing deal.
Fantastic. Well,
I'm
before we
curious.
get to,
I just want to make
Um,
sure I'm on.
yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. No, I'm Tom Cooley. Wayne was just talking about me. This is the first time I've been on this thing trying to get work. Wayne, I got it all done. The re-editing. I'm trying to download it right now onto your stick. So we're ready to go. All right. So, all right, back to the topics, guys. Go ahead.
Thanks,
Well,
Tom.
this is normally the time when we do introductions. So we kind of go one by one and give everyone a quick minute to just explain who they are, what they do, if they have anything that they want to say. So, hey, you're coming through with a lot of background noise. So there we go. So if people can mute, and unless they have a question or something to say, that would be great, just for this, so that we don't have 20 different mic inputs going on at once. So Tom, since you were just talking, Tom, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us about what you do, and give us a sense of any projects you've been
Okay.
working on.
You got my name. It's Tom. I've been working in media since 1960. I've been around the block many times. I've worked on stage, motion picture, television, radio, you name it, I've done it. I'm retired semi right now. I like to write. Used to work for the Osmonds. Started out in props and worked my way up to assistant art director. I've done a lot of small, fun little films and stuff like that, but I've worked with some big ones as well, as in various capacities. I love editing. Like to work with lighting on sets and things like that. I'm starting to put together another script, and I'll be looking for folks to help me with getting that produced fairly soon. So the ball's in whoever court would like to talk next.
Fantastic. Well, Tim Williams, why don't you introduce yourself? Although everyone here should know Tim.
That I'm not sure. Hi, everybody. Tim Williams, Oregon Film. Happy to be here, and really looking forward to hearing what hometown Klamath man Bergen Swanson has to say. I haven't spoken or heard from him in years and years and years, so I'm glad you're here, my friend.
Me too.
Tim is a huge supporter of our festival, and for those who don't know, Oregon Film is the statewide office that supports film productions throughout the state, and he does tons of work, everything from direct sponsorships, like Oregon Film yet again is a sponsor of Klamath Independent Film Festival, to coordinating things like right now trying to figure out PPE for film productions to still continue, and what sort of restrictions need to be in place in order for people to actually be able to film stuff at the moment, which seems to be changing by the day, if not the hour, right, Tim?
It does, and if anybody needs it, we have published protocols through the OMPA. We are updating them on a weekly basis. In addition, for those micro projects that can't afford PPE, we have a limited supply in our office, so if anybody needs one for a smaller shoot, let me know. We have masks and gloves and hand sanitizer and surface sanitizer. We'd much rather have you get a limited supply from us than go without, because we do not want to be the industry that does this wrong. So please make sure you check out the protocols and let me know if I can be helpful in any way on the PPE front, for sure.
Thank you, Tim. Wayne, why don't you introduce yourself, even though we already talked a little bit?
Oh, I'm an actor. I have produced and directed and done lighting and everything else, but I'm an actor. That's what I love, what I do. Long story about how I got started in it, but basically I only got started less than 11 years ago. Although not everything that I've acted in is on my resume. I've been part of 30 plus projects in that 11 years, and just absolutely adore acting. So done many different varied types of roles. Anybody need an actor, give me a holler.
Fantastic. Gary, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. Hey, everybody. Hey, Bergen. Gary Cowd, based here in Ashland, Oregon. Moved up from LA 17 years ago, and didn't expect to find a little hotbed of production here. But since then, I've line produced, or production managed 9 independent features in Oregon. And I still travel a lot for work, but right now I'm just grateful that there's some projects that are happening here locally. Just finished a couple local commercials for Harry and David. And like I mentioned, I've done a bit of work for Netflix over the last few years, mostly in the doc space. But commercials, narratives, documentaries, music videos, further in the past, but worked on just about everything, and love calling Southern Oregon my home.
Fantastic. Thank you, Gary. Court, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Court. Used to be a technical and scientific filmmaker in LA. Started out, got into film through music. I did some arranging and orchestrating for commercials, TV, stuff like that. Now I'm based here in Klamath Falls, and I'm focusing on doing music for film again.
Terrific. Thank you, Court. Mary Jane, welcome back, Mary Jane. You can unmute yourself. Mary Jane, are you still with us? We'll move on.
Okay,
There you are.
can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. Well, quick introduction, I guess. I'm Mary Jane Hillier. Have no outstanding credentials like I have heard within the last few minutes to share, but I'm just interested in learning more about film. I like to write. I have written 2 shorts that I hope someday may become films. And we have lived here for 10 years. My husband and I, we have 5 sons, and I have a background in special education, and I enjoy working with children with disabilities. And I'm just really part of the group to learn.
Well, Mary Jane, you were a target hopeful for our film camp this summer, because I think that's something that we're trying to target it for teens and parents as something to do together. So if you're interested, we would love to have you be a part of that.
Okay, yeah, I will. I'll keep that in mind. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Michael, why don't you introduce yourself?
All right. Hello, everyone. My name's Michael. I'm currently a professional slash technical writing student at Oregon Tech. Also currently interning with Klamath Film. I'm not very involved with the film industry, but I'm a big film fan and just like to learn the process. I kind of grew up always watching like special features and directors' commentaries, listening to those and that sort of thing. So I've always been interested in just the editing process and how a film goes from all of those individual elements to a complete finished project. So I'm definitely enjoying interning here and learning all kinds of things about the industry.
Terrific. And Michael was one of our judges for the initial sweep of films. Did you have a personal favorite, Michael, of all of the films that we had come through?
Oh, yeah, I mean, I know pretty much everyone loved Frank and Zed, and I watched that one probably last because it was sort of a late entry, but my favorite overall was actually a short, and I can't remember the name off the top of my head. It was something like Key to Memory, I believe.
Hmm.
Yeah, Key to Memory, that's right. Yeah, that was my favorite one. I think just pretty much every one I watched had something it did very, very well. There's a lot of skill involved, but I think that one was my favorite because just overall, every aspect of it was great. Just the cinematography, just that like somber atmosphere. I loved just the whole experience of that one. Really stood out to me.
Fantastic. Caller one, I'm not sure who you are, but I hear background noise from you. Whoever was just laughing a second ago, if you could introduce yourself. Okay, never mind then. Sarah Logan.
Hi, can you hear me? I just unmuted myself. Great. Yeah, I'm an actor. I moved back from LA to my hometown. Well, I'm in Medford, but I go often to Klamath Falls to help out my parents. And anyway, so I'm homesick. I love Southern Oregon, so it was really nice to come back. So I'm a voiceover artist, and I've done some film, and I have a classic training from drama school in England, and I'm just really excited to be part of this. I have some projects that I'm trying to get going, but I'm new at this, so it's really exciting to like be part of a community that has this, so I can kind of learn the ins and outs, or like if I need somebody that I can, let them do it, kind of thing. So I really was excited too about the equipment talk about that.
Hmm.
So I don't know when
Yeah,
or if I'm ever going to do that, but that's pretty cool.
we
So
have a wide variety. In fact, I'll show you some of the setup with
yeah, that's awesome. And
so
can I say what my favorite film was from? I'm
oh,
sorry I couldn't
absolutely.
select them all, but because my internet went down right when I was about ready to finish everything. But I love The Big Life of Dave. I was just so enthralled with that. And that was such a, like, it had everything. I just loved that
Yeah.
documentary. Loved it.
So Sarah's talking about a documentary that's actually made about one of our members who has come to a few of our meetings earlier this year, and he was a post-production studio head, worked in audio for film and TV for decades in Los Angeles. Dave is living here in Klamath, and he's doing okay. He is also suffering from cancer, though. So the film follows him and his whole historic life through winning Emmys and awards and whatnot. Unfortunately, the film has some copyright issues, which I was talking with the filmmaker the other day, and they don't think they're going to be able to get it cleared in time for the film festival. So that film is unfortunately going to be DQ'd, but
Oh
maybe at some point
no.
we'll be able to show it to people in some way. But I don't think that's going to be able to be shown at KIF, just as far as timelines go. There's too many licensing issues involved with it. But it is
Oh
a
darn.
fantastic film. And we
Yeah.
need to get Dave involved with our meetings again. Okay, D. Randall Terhune. Not sure who David, is that you?
Yes, hello. Yeah, it's the first time I've joined this meeting. I'm a graduate of Henley High School a long time ago in Willamette University. I'm now a professor at the University in Kyoto, Japan. And I usually cruise through Klamath in August, visiting family. I've attended the James Ivory events in the beginning of August, and that's about it. And I was just interested in, I've seen the latest film done in Klamath Falls, the Phoenix, Oregon.
Phoenix, Oregon? Yep.
Yep. Enjoyed it. Been to a couple of the shooting locations. So I was just interested in this movie. I've seen a couple of movies that this producer has done. I teach film at my university in Kyoto, and I'm just an interested listener. Observer.
Are you checking in with us from Japan, or are you here in Klamath?
Yes. No, there's no way you're going to get to United States right now from Japan. It's on lockdown.
Well, thank you very much for joining us.
10:30 in the morning, so it's a very reasonable time.
Lisa Gabriel.
Hello. Hi, everybody. Most people, I think, know me already. I'm a producer. I have my own production company that I actually just started. So we've got probably about a slate of 10 projects we're in development on. And I'm also the vice president of post-production and worldwide distribution for MSR Media, formerly Bauer Martinez. So I grew up here in Klamath native. I split my time usually between here and Los Angeles, and I'm normally traveling for productions, but am here because, of course, the lockdown. And good news out of Europe, it appears that they're going to start allowing film production people into various countries, despite the fact that they're not letting anybody else in. So we're trying to get productions back up and running, and I just got some news about that today. So it looks like travel for us might be improving slightly, but for the most part, if I don't need to travel, I'm going to stay here. I do have a short film I'd like to try to do here this summer, but it actually involves about 30 kids, so could be a bit challenging in this time. So we're still kind of assessing to see if that's going to work. But longtime film production and distribution executive, and Klamath native. So I'm just here with the group today, and still working. Thank goodness.
Fantastic. And Anna Amarilla, saw that you joined as well. If you want to unmute and introduce yourself to the group. Or not. Okay, there you are.
Oh, sorry, this is the first time I've used GoToMeeting, so I'm just trying to get to know the interface here. I moved to Klamath about 2 years ago, and my passion has always been photography. And about 8 years ago, I started taking motion picture and television at the Academy of Art in San Francisco. But unfortunately, at that time, after I was there for about a year, my daughter got really sick, so I had to drop out and just kind of give up on my passions. And just the other day, when I was looking on Facebook, I saw the advertisement for this, and so I kind of got excited, because during this COVID, I've been laid off my job, and the one thing that has been kind of a blessing is I've been kind of dabbling again in photography, also digital editing, and I got my subscription to Adobe Premiere Pro. So I'm kind of getting into it, and I'm kind of thinking about joining the group. I didn't know that there was one in Klamath, so I'm kind of excited by this, and I'm excited to meet all of you.
Fantastic. Well, welcome. We always love seeing new people join our meetings. We do this every month, and every month we have a different featured guest. There's one other person on the call, and I'm not sure who it is. It says caller 01. Who is that? Or maybe that's a duplicate name in. Going once, going twice, going 3 times for caller 1. Otherwise, we will just move on. If I didn't do it, I'm Kurt Lidke. I'm the executive director for Klamath Film. I'm also a commercial drone pilot and a filmmaker myself. And my day job is as one of the editors for the Herald and News newspaper here in Klamath Falls. Thank you for joining us. We have a special guest, one of our own is joining us. Bergen Swanson is someone who grew up repairing bicycles here in Klamath Falls and somehow went from fixing bike chains to working with Reese Witherspoon and Tom Hanks. So we're going to get a chance to hear how all of that came together and get a chance to ask Bergen questions. He has a pretty impressive IMDb and hear about new projects and just how Hollywood's surviving. But first, I have a little video to show of some of Bergen's work. Have you ever had a demo reel done of your work before, Bergen?
I have not, so I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, well, let me see if I got this working right.
All right, so we just take things slow. Whatever you want, you call the shots. All right?
Okay. Very cool. Ah, come on. You're beautiful.
Saving face.
I'm a lesbian.
I'm cool with that.
I already have a boyfriend.
The more the merrier.
Coming apart at the same. I'm holding that.
Party at my house tonight. My dad's out of town.
Yeah, I'm invited.
Yep. That's why I'm telling you.
Something you do well?
Nothing.
Everybody's good at something.
You will stand up there and look down at me?
Some people, year after year, sometimes you stop seeing the other person.
You know, Jesse and I.
Hey, Stoker, what do you go by, Stroker now? Because I hear that's what your mom's been doing to your uncle.
Differently. What if all those things I did were the things that got me here?
Do anything to catch your daughter's killer. I don't think those billboards is very fair.
Time it took you to get out here whining like a bitch, Willoughby. Some other poor girl's probably out there being butchered right now.
Because no one thinks we have the balls to pull this off.
It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine?
Okay, I just realized that for anyone who called in, they didn't see anything.
I saw it. No problem here.
Yeah, I saw it too.
No, I can't hear you, Kurt.
Yeah, your sound's off, Kurt.
Am I still coming through?
There you
Check,
go.
check.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
You're good.
Okay. Okay. So with that, let's introduce our guest, Bergen Swanson. If people have questions, of course, you can just ask or pop something in the chat room. But let's start this off first with how in the world does someone go from working on bicycles in Klamath Falls to living in New York working with Tom Hanks?
How did I get here? I mean, I grew up in Klamath Falls. I graduated from Mazama, went to school in Eugene, went to school for architecture. And that was kind of the sort of what started the ball rolling. While I was in architecture school, I started taking some other classes besides architecture classes, and I took an Italian film class. And that's kind of what really sort of spurred my interest in film. A director, Antonioni, is sort of the one that kind of got me started. And then worked in the architecture in architecture for a while, but then a friend that I'd gone to school with was a set designer in LA on a Star Trek TV series. And I visited him one year and I was just like, this is what I want to do. And so moved to LA in late 90s and then moved to New York right after September 11th, which is I think about when I met you, Tim, not long after there. You know, there wasn't a lot going on in November of 2001 in New York City for reasons you can guess. But I got an internship for a couple producers named Forensic Films, Scott McCauley, Robin O'Hara, who Tim knows quite well, same building there in Greenwich, on Greenwich Street. And then just kind of started rolling from there, working, you know, I think, you know, Tim can probably speak to this more, just sort of the last heyday of kind of like New York independent, those kind of, you know, late 90s, early 2000s and stuff. And worked in New York for, you know, first 5-6 years of my career there, and then just started traveling around the country and working on other films. So, you know, I've been pretty lucky, you know, sort of right place, right time kind of thing. So, but I'm a Klamath Falls kid at heart for sure, and I get back there every so often. So trying to get back out there soon for personal reasons, but you know that's probably not going to happen anytime soon. And right now I'm married and I have 2 young children, but we live in Vermont, and so we're out here sort of writing this all out.
Yeah. We still see the sign on Altamont Drive. Anyone who drives down it, you still see the sign for Yankee Peddler.
Yeah.
That was Bergen's dad's bike shop, and that's where Bergen got his start. So are there any parallels between working with bicycles and working in film?
Yeah, I think what I do, you know, I'm called many things on films, but I'm a line producer, and it's basically running a small business is sort of one ways to look at it. And it's, you know, basic people skills, basic problem solving skills. And so it's very similar skill set that I learned in that bicycle store for the 20 some odd years I spent time there.
Terrific. Well, does anyone have any questions for Bergen? I can definitely go down his IMDb. I mean, it's pretty extensive. You did explain it a little bit in terms of what a line producer. By the way, is anyone else picking up echo on me, or is it just me? No? Okay, cool. Okay, my headphones are acting weird then. Really extensive IMDb of all the different films that you've worked on. I think when a lot of people who may not be in the industry, they understand the lead actor's role, they understand a director's role, but they really don't necessarily get what a producer does or what a line producer does specifically. So could you maybe talk about the difference between the two?
Yeah, I mean, I think producers, you know, they're the ones, you know, and Tim can speak to this because he's produced many great films. I think they're really the ones that shepherd the project along. Sometimes they find the script, commission a script, work with the director, sort of really shepherd the film kind of from beginning to end, you know. And my job is I'm the person responsible for the physical production of the film. So usually once a director's on and there's a script, I come in and create the production plan for the film. Like basically how are we going to make this movie? And so I create initial schedules, budgets, and do a lot of the initial hiring and just kind of see it through pre-production period and the filming period, and then I leave the show basically after we finish filming. And so I'm not around for the editing or the music or the visual effects. But usually, you know, I've set up things in a certain way that, you know, they pick up from there. And a lot of times I'll come back in to do reshoots on a film, which is what I'm in the middle of right now on a film I shot last year, to pick up additional scenes or, you know, do fixes and such. And so usually I do about one film a year, and that takes up the best part of the year for me. Take time off in between.
A couple of years ago, you and I had a chance to talk for a feature article that I did, and my favorite quote from you was saying that the fun part of your job is when everything's going to hell. Could you kind of describe that?
Yeah, I don't know if all line producers are that way, but you know, there's, you know, it never goes right on a film for sure. And so personally, I kind of feed off, you know, problem solving, and so I very much enjoy that kind of aspect of it. And there's always something that goes wrong on a film, and it keeps it interesting, it keeps it fresh. And so I think that's, even though it's a challenging job, it kind of, you know, I keep coming back to it. So.
There's always those circumstances where maybe at the time people are freaking out, and after the fact you can laugh about it because everything turned out okay. You know, no one died. The film still came out. Any funny stories that come to mind of really chaotic things in the midst of your job that you had to fix or figure out how are we even going to do this?
None I can speak about freely. These are the best stories. You know, so I mean, this last movie that we shot last year, which was a Netflix feature, we shot partially in New Mexico, and we finished the film in Atlantic City, and we literally had run-ins with the mob and sort of, you know, tough guys and, you know, shady characters and you know, big threats to crew members, and so nothing overt, but you know, we had extra security, and we had lawyers, and I was flying across the country multiple times a week, and so it was challenging for sure. And so, and, you know, but we got through it, and you know, you have to deal with hurricanes, and you know, I was in New Orleans on a film once when a hurricane came through, you know, a few years after Katrina, and you have to shut the whole production down, and people leave town, you come back, you know, storms, so that kind of stuff. You know, I've had interesting run-ins with actors, you know, which I won't speak any names of, but it's fun. Most of the people in the film industry are really great people, but you know, like in any sort of circumstance, there's interesting ones out there. So.
Tim brought up a question in the chat room, and it's actually something that I wanted to talk about, so we might as well delve into it. You played a very instrumental role in the film Wild, not just as a producer, but that film has really become a showcase for filmmaking in Southern Oregon, a real landmark film. And my understanding if I remember from when we talked a couple years ago, that was actually gonna be shot in New Mexico, and you were the one that convinced them to film it in Oregon. So can you tell that story?
Yeah, I mean, and you know, I know Oregon intimately from, you know, having grown up there, but the film was set, you know, basically the Cheryl Strait character walks from Southern California all the way to the Bridge of the Gods on the Columbia there. And some of the initial discussions with the studio was Utah, New Mexico, and then going to Oregon for just little bits and pieces. And I think, you know, living in Klamath Falls, I think everyone that hasn't been to Oregon thinks it's all green and, you know, trees and lush and rain all over the place. And so when I came in, I was like, you could shoot this entire film in Oregon, and it looks like Southern California. And so when you actually watch that film, there's scenes that we shot one day in Mojave down in California, and there's certain scenes where Reese is walking along and you're in California, and the next shot we're in Southern Oregon, and no one notices the difference. So it was fun. That's one of my favorite films to work on. You know, it's just like standing out in the desert and in the rain, and which is enjoyable. Yeah, I like that film a lot.
And
Tim was on it
too. Film, yeah. The way that film has become such a landmark piece for Oregon filmmaking. I know that's one of the flagships that Tim always tries to promote is, or Wild is an Oregon film through and through. What kind of pride do you have with that, having grown up here, being that you were so instrumental in keeping it as an Oregon film?
I have lots of pride, and a lot of people, that's, people outside of the industry, that's definitely a film that people notice, because I think it had a broad audience, and so it worked on showing Oregon, but it was just a good story that people relate to. So I'm very proud of that movie.
Tim also wanted you to talk about working on multiple projects with Steve M.
Yeah, Steve McQueen. I've done 3 shows with Steve, and Steve was, when I saw his first film, Hunger, which I don't know if you guys have seen that film. It was when I saw that film before working with him, I was like, this is the kind of movie that got me into movie making. And it's just, you can sort of feel the hand of the author. And so when the opportunity came up to do Shame, I just jumped at it. And so, I mean, he's a very special person, in my career, and I would do anything to, for him and work on any of his projects. And so he's a very heartfelt filmmaker, even though his work comes across very analytical at times, but it's all heart with him. So yeah, I'm very, very proud of, Shame, I would say, is probably the film I'm most proud of on my resume. It's just like, it's why I got into it, really.
And another thing that I remember from our interview was Shame is the only film, and maybe this has changed now, but Shame was the only film where you took something from the set that you've kept, right?
I did, but it no longer exists. There's a couch from that movie, and I've since had a fire in an apartment building in New York, and so the couch did not survive the fire. So, but yeah,
well, for those who haven't seen it, that is a NC-17 film. So I've seen what happened on that couch. So hopefully you sanitized it before you took it home.
Yeah, there's a lot of, well, I'll leave it at that.
Does anyone have any questions for Bergen? Otherwise, it's just going to be
no
the two of us
question,
chatting.
just a comment.
I just
wanted to comment if I could. Am I on?
Yep.
Okay. It's funny, on Wild, there was a scene shot in the square at Ashland. And I got to play there one day as an extra. And it's funny, there's one gentleman that was walking by, and I looked at him, I said, "You look surprisingly like James Caan." And he just gave me this nice smile, knowing look, and I realized it was him and ran away like a little kid. It was just completely unexpected, but a very memorable day. Thank you.
I got a question for you. What's in the future for you?
What's in the future for you? Who knows?
I've got a couple of scripts I'm getting ready to submit.
I'm working on this reshoots for this film for Netflix, but there's stuff, and everyone in Hollywood seems to be trying to get ready and get prepped to come back, but there's it hasn't broken loose for sure, and there's a lot of sort of false starts that I've been seeing over the past few months, and so I don't know, it feels like the opportunity to spend time with my family is what's in my future.
That's important.
So the film that Bergen's been mentioning is, according to your IMDb at least, it's called Army of the Dead, directed by Zack Snyder. And the way that you described it to me before was that it's like a zombie film meets Ocean's 11. Can you give us a little idea of what this film's like?
Yeah, it's exactly what it is, and it's definitely the outlier on my resume for sure. I jumped at the opportunity to work on something of this type just because I'd never worked on a big special effects or visual effects or makeup effects kind of movie. But it's basically a zombie heist film about a bunch of a ragtag group of people that bust into Vegas to get a bunch of money in a vault, and they have to get past a bunch of zombies and mayhem and comedy ensues. So it's a fun movie. It's definitely not a movie to take too seriously, but it's fun. It's coming out in January. So look for it on Netflix then.
Cool. That is definitely a departure because a lot of your films are downers, man. I mean, great films, but Precious and I mean, Parts of Wild, Widows, Three Billboards, Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. If there's such a thing as getting typecast as a producer, you seem to lean more towards the Academy Award nominated films that you cry and get super sad about during the course of the duration of the film.
Yeah, that's it. You nailed it. That's the last 20 years of my life.
Do we have other questions for Bergen?
One quick question. That you're executive producing films, you're spending a lot of time trying to, acquire properties and, that side of it.
I don't, and I mentioned earlier that I'm called many things on credits on film, and it's sometimes it's co-producer, sometimes it's line producer, sometimes it's executive producer. I did a HBO show where I was called a producer, but I'm really just a line producer. That is my focus. That's something I don't quite fully understand, why line producers aren't called line producers on movies, but.
Yeah, actually, I had that same question. Why on some movies do you get executive producer credit and line producer credit? Is there rhyme or reason? Is there a difference in what you do or bring to the project or follow through later?
No, it's sort of an experience thing. When I start out, my first credits were as line producers, and then you negotiate a better credit, and you're called a co-producer, and then then you get called an executive producer, which is kind of where I'm at right now in my career. On TV, my job is called a producer, exact same job. So it's about agents and studios, sort of beyond me. When I introduce myself on a show, I call myself the line producer. So.
Is there a DGA component? Are you in the guild?
Yeah.
And you get UPM credit?
Yeah, I usually get UPM credit for last 10, 12 years. And so even if there is a DGA UPM, an additional UPM on the show too. So it kind of comes down to health insurance, really. It's kind of what that's about. So.
Yeah, word. I hear you.
Could you give us maybe?
Sorry,
go ahead.
I just have one really very technical question, and it's because I'm in it right now with a couple of projects. So, are you still using Movie Magic? Are you using Showbiz? Have you tried Yamdu?
Yeah, you're talking for budgeting and scheduling.
Yeah.
It's Movie Magic, and it stinks. It's a terrible program that the whole industry uses, and so you're kind of stuck using it. So.
Yeah. Okay. Curious. Yeah, I'm trying Showbiz budgeting, and I like it a lot, but I know it's not the standard.
Yeah, there's been other stuff. There's an Axiom software, but I think it's Movie Magic is just prevalent. So that's what the studios use. That's what the accountants use.
Yeah.
Okay. So Bergen, for the last couple months, we've had people as our featured guests who are very Hollywood centric. We had a screenwriter last month, the guy who wrote the Sonic the Hedgehog movie in early 2020. And we've had a few others chime in. We had a music composer as well on TV and film. And so we've been getting the perspective of what is it like to continue business during a global pandemic? Can you put us in as far as from the producing side? Are things different for you this year, or is it still full speed ahead as far as your little niche of the industry?
Yeah, I mean, the last week of my life has been nonstop, pandemic discussions. Right. Issue. Is that me getting feedback or? Your mic's off again. Nope. Okay, I think I hear what you're saying. Just keep talking. But yeah, it's we're figuring it out. It's you know, I've for the last week been working with Netflix on this reshoot. Every day is a different discussion about how we work, where you go. Everyone's working remotely. You know, even for shoots, we will move a lot slower in productions as everyone is being safe. A lot more people, which is sort of an interesting aspect of it to deal with all of this. We talk tomorrow. I'll tell you something new probably about all of this. It's definitely consumed our industry, all the discussions that we have. But you know, I do have hope. It does seem like we're going in the right direction as far as figuring out being as safe as we can be. And so I don't know if it's this year that we'll come back, but you know, at least by next year, I feel like we'll have productions back up and running based on what we know now. Can't hear you.
Kurt, your mic's not working. Sorry about that. Bergen, sorry, but well, Kurt's muted. How fast do you think you might be able to go back into production? Do you have any sense of it? Like, are they talking next week? Are they talking next month? Or is it moving target with you?
The show that we're talking about, these reshoots, we would be 7 weeks out on Monday. But it's supposed to film in LA, which is really not a great place to be right now. So we'll see what happens on Monday. So
so it's sort of moving every day.
Yeah,
I just finished.
Go ahead.
I just finished 2 shoots here in Southern Oregon. We can do it. Right, Tim? We can ease up the restrictions just maybe a little.
But I do know Netflix has a show shooting next week for 1 day. So in LA. So they're, you know, Netflix is very, I think, you know, and Gary, you could probably speak to this too. They're very proactive and energetic about, you know, things. And so they have a lot of research and a lot of people, you know, like right now they just have doctors on staff and epidemiologists, and, you know, they're monitoring the rates and the numbers every day. So it's impressive what a company like Netflix can do.
Did you do the epidemiologist call that Janice just had 2 days ago? Did you have that call?
I spent today talking to like a COVID services company. I haven't quite got into it with the doctors yet. So
I think there's one on Thursday next week with the Netflix safety team.
Yeah. But yeah.
I can speak a bit to indie production, actually. I know there's a friend of mine shooting a shoot down in Petaluma, and everybody on staff, of course, has to go in and just be tested regularly. They all had to test before they left to go there. They all had to be tested when they got there. And I think they're testing and monitoring throughout. But I know in Europe, they're back up and running. Matrix 4 is back up and running. My producing partner, John, is on that. And they got back underway in Potsdam, outside of Berlin, and we're back up and running in York, England. And the protocols are there. They do have safety people on set, and you know, basically there's a lot of individual lunches and individual packaging for you know, makeup and stuff like this. There's a lot of, you know, changes obviously with how the workflow goes. Production that I am around and familiar with. We're delivering to Amazon right now, and so we've got 4 territories we're doing localization for French, German, Italian, Castilian, Spanish dubbing, and I know that they were saying that they have to sterilize between who come, you know, the artists who come in and record, they have to sterilize in between them and then wait 2 hours before they can bring in the next artist. So these are some of the kinds of protocols I'm seeing within.
Yeah.
And in post-production, it's easier because, you know, you can isolate editors and different people in certain, you know, rooms, or people can work remotely. So, you know, things are still moving for me, you know, at an exponential rate. We've got 15 films in post and in, you know, production and in post. So we've not been overwhelmingly affected by it, but I know that, you know, in terms of LA and local in the States, it's been much more difficult to get back up and running.
Yeah, I mean, there's sort of similar stuff with production, you know, shooting, like, you know, if you need to adjust a light, you know, you have to clear the actors, you have to clear the people, sanitize the set, the electrics come in, they do their work, they leave, you sanitize the set, you bring the actors in. So, but it's like, we're figuring it out. The steps are there. It's going to be slow and bumpy, but, you know, and it's kind of new for everyone, you know, so we're all in it together for sure. There's kind of no experts on this kind of production. So.
Test, test. Can you hear me now?
Yep, you're back.
Hey, all right. Sorry about that. I had a gremlin appear and mess with all of my super expensive gear. Well, I'm glad to hear that you're at least able to find work right now, because a lot of people for the last couple months have been trying to figure out, by any means necessary, whether you do it very underground rogue approach, or you try to follow all the rules, and then they change the rules on you every day as far as what you can and can't do. Tim and I have had a few conversations. We've been on a lot of conference calls about that, of the ever-changing rules. And if I recall, Australia was the first place to really try to even begin filming with actors again, but having to keep everyone 6 feet apart while filming. Just a lot of odd rules. With your job, do you find yourself on set a lot? Or I know a lot of your work is kind of pre-production work to get everything lined up, but how is being on set even going to work now going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think my job, I question if I'll ever go back on set with the pandemic, because my particular job, it's not necessary for me to be next to the camera or next to the director. My job is typically sort of orbiting that world and kind of being ready to kind of deal with anything. But I think there's going to be more. It's like you're going to treat every scene is going to be treated like a sex scene. It's just going to get only the critical people are there. You don't need to be there, you leave. And so, but yeah, honestly, I might do the rest of my job just like this, sitting in my living room in Vermont. So I wouldn't be surprised if a variation of that.
We're all figuring out how to work from home these days in different capacities. For anyone who hasn't had a chance to ask a question yet, would anyone like to bring something up with Bergen? Michael or Mary Jane, Sarah, I know you haven't had a chance to talk yet. Randall, Michael? If you got a question, if not, I won't put you on the spot.
I've got a question. Not too sure if you can answer this. I actually, in high school, was a really big Zack Snyder fan. So since I'm curious if even if you had a chance to be on set for that latest film you were talking about, just kind of curious what your kind of impressions of his directing style and things like that, because it was actually kind of his director's commentaries that got me interested in the film industry. So anytime I kind of hear his name, I always want to jump at the chance to ask well, what do people actually think about him, that kind of thing.
I mean, I love him to death. He's one of my favorite people that I've worked with. He's just, again, I mean, the people, some of the directors I've really loved working with, Steve, Jean-Marc on Wild, Jake Scott in New Orleans, but you see a lot of similarities, and it's usually kind of comes from the heart. And Zach he's like a nonstop, just full of energy, just never quits, and talking about stuff. I mean, he's a fun person to be around, and I think that people like being around him because he's just fun. And so I think that's been one of the keys to his success. And he's, it's a very particular type of movie that he does. But a lot of people love his movies, and I'm one of them. So, but yeah, I have nothing but great things to say about Zach. Sure.
Awesome. Yeah, I love his films too. Thanks.
Anyone else who hasn't had a chance to chime in yet?
Yeah, Randy Terhune here.
Yes,
One
sir.
of the films that Bergen has done that I really enjoyed, just glancing at his resume here, was The Visitor. I thought that was a great movie for, cross-cultural aspects and, let's see, displacement of and awkwardness of when Richard Jenkins goes back to his home and things like that. I thought that was a fine film. And I
Thanks.
don't think very many people have seen it. Right after I saw it, I was walking in a park near Osaka Castle, and there were a bunch of guys playing bongo drums. And I walked over and I asked them, I said, "Have you seen this film?" And this was before iPhones and instant connectivity, and they go, no. And so I had to write it down, and I'm sure nobody saw it, but I really enjoyed that film. Thank you very much.
Thanks. I mean, the last scene of that movie is, I think, one of my favorite last scenes of the movies that I've worked on. Just, and if you've seen it, it's where Richard Jenkins goes back down into the subway and starts playing the bongos for kind of the first time on his own. And it's such a great sort of arc of his character. I mean, I think that's why that's such a good movie. And so glad you liked it.
When you got into the industry and you're trying to get your foot in the door, as with a lot of people, you kind of take any job that can possibly come your way. But now you're at the point where you have enough credits to your name and you've worked on multiple Academy Award-winning films. So you get to be a little bit more selective in the type of projects that you do, right? Is it kind of word of mouth that you get involved with stuff, or repeat people that you've worked with in the past, or how do you get involved in a project, and do you get to kind of pick and choose what you want to work on?
I mean, it's a relatively small community that we all work in, and so I think once you know one person, and I think that's how it worked. I was an intern for these producers, and a guy down the hallway knew me, and then someone heard about the film I did with him, and so it just kind of rolled along like that. But yeah, definitely for the first few years, I jumped at every opportunity I could get. And I was couch surfing for the first few months I lived in New York. I was working. I look back at my tax returns, and I'm not even quite sure how I survived those years there. So, but it worked out. So.
We've all interned at some point or another, paying our dues. Michael is currently doing that for us right now, doing a lot of the grunt work for Klamath Film. We appreciate the time he's putting in. Do you have any films that you have maybe refused to work on, and then once it was finished, you're like, oh crap, I wish I'd been a part of that thing that turned out to be amazing? Or in contrast, maybe a film you worked on and like, what was I thinking being a part of that one?
Well, I won't speak to that last question, but I mean, there's been films that for various reasons I have not worked on, and they've gone on to be successful. I mean, the one that pops in my mind was La La Land, that Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone musical, because it was one of the same producers from The Kids Are All Right, and he had heard I'd just come off of a musical in New York, which was conspicuously not on your demo reel for me. But it's also the movie where I met my wife, so that was a good one. So he called me, and I was like, I just cannot do another musical right now, and I was just like, it was like, this looks so hard, and then the movie turned out very well for them. Not quite as well as they had hoped right there at the end, but I'm the little Oscar flub there years ago. So.
From the producer side of things, has there ever been a challenge come up that was too difficult for you to overcome? Or maybe you can talk a little bit about what's one of the craziest things I know you talked a little bit about dealing with the mob for your latest film, but some of the weirder things you've had to deal with and try to fix, or stuff where you're just like, this is just too much for me to deal with.
I mean, there's never been anything that's been too much, and if there was, I probably wouldn't still be doing this job. I think people know that. I mean, on a very sad note, the hardest thing I had to deal with is a crew member dying on a movie set, which was a very tragic sort of freak accident. And and that was hard, but and it kind of makes all the other problems seem pretty trivial. And so at the end of the day, yeah, I can't even really think of any other sort of. I mean, there's just so many little things like that happen, but I'm still doing it, so I guess nothing's too hard.
You are a Klamath Falls kid, even though I'm sure you don't get a chance to get back very often. Although we did get the obituary of your dad's passing last year, and I know your dad is kind of a local legend around here. I'm sure probably several people on this call maybe even got their first bicycle from you and your dad. So just any sort of particularly fond memories of the Klamath Basin, or things that you like to do when you do manage to get back this way sometime? Or I know I grew up in Eugene, and anytime that I get a chance to go home, the first thing is like, okay, I got to visit this restaurant, I got to hit that food truck. There's certain things like they just don't make it except anywhere there,
Yeah, I mean, it's been years since I've done it, but I love riding my bike there. I see a good friend of mine is on here who, he's still riding back there. I mean, I find Klamath a very beautiful area. I mean, it's a very sort of stark landscape, but yeah, exactly. Right. I knew exactly where Wayne was when he came. But that's what I was born there. I grew up there, so it'll always be, special, in that way. And yeah, hopefully I will be back there soon, but I have things to deal with back there. So
yeah. I know you did this extensively with Wild, but have you had any opportunities, or do you kind of keep it in the back of your mind sometimes of, what if I could bring this production to Oregon? Or like, what, maybe I could turn this into both a family trip and a work job if I can convince the studio to film part of this in Southern Oregon.
Yeah, no, actually, I mean, last year I called Tim because the Netflix movie it's set in a casino, and so we needed to take over a casino because we have a bunch of zombies running through it, and so we were looking all around the country, and so I was like, there's got to be some casino in Oregon, but nothing that kind of fit the bill for us. So yeah, I'd love to come back there. My mom, she lives up in the McMinnville area, so it'd be good to kind of be able to see her a little more often. But yeah, Oregon's great. I mean, there's just such a variety there that I don't think most people realize, and it's a nice place to be. It's a good state. So.
Does anyone else have any questions for Bergen? I mean, we could talk for hours, but I don't want to bore people here if it's just him and I just chatting back and forth. For maybe some of the people who haven't had a chance to talk yet. I know Sarah hasn't had a chance to ask a question yet, or Mary Jane hasn't had a chance to ask a question yet.
I don't have anything to ask, but I'm fascinated. You're not boring me. So go ahead and talk away.
Well, Bergen, maybe for some of our members who aren't in the industry yet, or they're just starting to delve into it, you can give some advice on how to actually get your foot in the door. I know you definitely put in, like you said, some couch time and with internships and trying to take any job that you could and build up the resume. But these days, how does someone go from Klamath Falls to being a major player in the film industry?
I think it's just perseverance. I mean, and I think, when I got started, 20 some odd years ago, there was more centers where you would go to, make movies, and that's what led me to LA and led me to New York. But I think, you can do it anywhere. And so I think it's just, it's things like this. It's, networking with people and just pushing every opportunity you have to, make a movie. And if anything, there's more demand for stuff to watch these days than there was 20 years ago. And so just keep at it. Send me an email. I'll help out however I can, whatever. I mean, I probably won't be too helpful, but I might be able to put you in contact with someone that can help. So it's, like I said, it's a small community. So, so if I don't know someone else probably knows someone. So.
I have a question, if I could. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Mary Jane.
Okay. I just have a quick question for you. For a young person who is in New York City right now, would there be any opportunity for being involved in some sort of job concerning with the film industry?
Yeah, most definitely. I think this is probably one of the best times to, global pandemics aside, New York, this whole industry, like I've seen it for the past 5-6 years. There's not enough people to do all the jobs, and I think in New York there's so many positions, being a production assistant. I've seen so many people that start out that way, and pretty soon they're ADs, and then they're producers or writers or directors and camera people that become directors. So yeah, there's many opportunities.
Okay, that's wonderful. Would you be able to maybe give more specifics as to maybe how a young person in New York City would be able to contact someone?
I think it would. Yeah, I mean, it's like I say, like right now, as far as I know, I don't think there's anything shooting going on right now. But if I'm happy to pass along names to people, because I think they're always looking for people. So Kurt has my contact info, and you can forward something on to me, and I'll get it. Because I sort of maintain a network of communication with people that do what I do, in New York primarily, because that's where most of my movies were done, and so we're always.
What about contacting the New York City Film Commission? They've always got contacts there.
Pardon me, what was that?
The New York City Film Commission.
Oh, okay. All right.
There's a program in New York called Tim. I don't know if you remember what it's called. It's basically like a PA training program, and
it's a Made in New York program, isn't it?
Yeah, and they put people on to films, they train them, and then they'll put them on, as best as they can onto productions. And that's been around for 10-15 years. So I think it's still around. But,
and the name of that was what?
There's a Made in New York PA program, Mary Jane. There also is a group in New York called the Independent Feature Project, the IFP. It's ifp.org. That's another good group to check into for filmmakers, either starting out and also connecting. So it's a great place. They own a theater down on Waverly as well. That's a film center that's worth checking out too.
Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate that info.
Bergen, I know it's such a weird time for the film industry. Well, it's a weird time for everyone right now, but it's a time when people can't really film anything. But from the other people we've had a chance to sit down with, we've heard that no one is reading scripts more than right now because they have an opportunity to do so. And there's never been more animation going into production right now than ever before, because that's something that people can still work on from home. So what are you seeing as far as the industry kind of taking advantage of current circumstance and trying to move forward as best they can?
I mean, from my perspective, I maybe haven't seen as much, because my involvement on a film kind of usually comes when it's sort of ready to go, or contemplating getting ready to go. I know I get a regular, I wouldn't say a flow, but periodically I have an agent, and they'll send me scripts, and so I think everyone is getting primed to go, for sure. And I've been taking this time to ride my bike. It's is what I've been doing, and working outside here in the garden and such. So
great. Well, getting the chance to take a break, that's often few and far between. I worked in Hollywood for 12 years before I moved to Southern Oregon, so I know the industry all too well, and the lifestyle. One project just kind of rolls into another, and before you know it, a year's gone by. You maybe got a weekend off at some point. So hopefully some people are taking advantage, but what we've been hearing is right now just everyone's trying to read scripts. So for those folks who have had a script in their back pocket for a decade, they've been trying to sell. Now is the time to try to do that. From all of your contacts within the industry, are people trying to figure out ways to still be able to film, or trying to work within the parameters to try to bring a production about? Because it
Yeah.
seems like it's changing on just about a daily basis as far as what the restrictions are, which makes it really difficult to plan ahead. Whether you're trying to put together a film festival, or for in Tim's case, he's guiding so many people, and Gary producing various films. So what are you hearing from friends and coworkers about trying to figure out ways to still be able to work right now amidst everything that's going on?
I mean, then that's what I was mentioning earlier. Just like there's companies popping up, everyone's coming out with protocols, and you see kind of consistency through all of them. But I think we're all trying to figure it out. And the reshoot I'm doing is not a simple reshoot too. It's relatively complicated that we're talking. But I think the biggest challenge right now is just is it really safe? Is it like contemplating going to Los Angeles? A lot of people are thinking about that, and traveling people, and so. But yeah, I think it's like our industry is all about problem solving and figuring out kind of impossible situations. So I think it's a good group of people to kind of figure it out. So everyone's pushing forward for sure. Go until you can't.
So your new Netflix film is the horror genre. You've done a lot of drama. I know you got to work on Widows, which was a great action film. Highly recommended for people who have HBO right now. It's on demand there. Is there a genre that you haven't had a chance to touch on that you would maybe like to work on? I'm sure working on zombie stuff is cool because you get all the makeup and special effects and stuff with Zack Snyder. But is there maybe a genre that someday you'd like to delve into that you haven't had a chance to work in?
All of it. I mean, I've never done a true sci-fi film, like spaceships and aliens and that kind of stuff. And because I think from my job, I love it's, and it sort of goes back to the bike store. I love putting things together. I love understanding how this thing goes next to that thing, and you make that thing kind of stuff. And so that's where Army of the Dead was such a opportunity I jumped at, because it's how do you make zombies? How do you film a movie that's set in Las Vegas, in Albuquerque, and Atlantic City? It's that kind of stuff. So it was fun. It was it got me going for sure. I liked it.
Well, we have some people involved who are working on films right now, or prepping films, whether it's higher end productions or just people who like to film stuff on their own in their living room or backyards and whatnot. Advice and recommendations for someone who has kind of been there, done that in the industry, for how to get started, or any suggestions you may have for some of our members.
Like I was saying earlier, because it's the way I did it, and that's I guess the biggest piece of advice is we all get into this business differently. I don't think there's anyone I know that has my exact same story. So just any opportunity, jump at it. And I think people see talent, and they'll reward it for sure, whether it's writing a script or directing or being a camera person or an art person. So.
I know early on in your career, you got to dabble in a bunch of different things. Again, taking any job that comes up, but you've found your niche as a producer. But have you ever felt that itch to kind of go back and maybe try to direct something, or maybe act, or be in some other aspect of the industry, or you like the lane you're in?
I really like the lane that I'm in. When I got started, I tried art department because of my architecture background, but I found I wanted to be closer to the action, to set, which a lot of art department work is. You're not where the scene is actually being filmed. And then, I tried directing a short film, when I was back in Klamath Falls, over 20 years ago, and it's just not my personality. And that's sort of the beauty of this industry, is just there's so many places for all of a sort of ragtag group of people to end up. And so I don't want to do any other jobs. So
So I know you're still wrapping up things on the Army of the Dead project. You said your agent's sending you scripts for a while. Are you latched onto another project in the future, or is that still kind of TBD at this point?
It's still TBD. I mean, there are a couple sci-fi spaceship projects out there, which I hope when this all starts up, they happen. So, but I would also love to do a movie about one person in a room talking about their problems too. If it's a good script, if it's something that piques my interest, I'll jump at it.
From the producer side, do different genres of films bring different challenges? Or do you just kind of work off a checklist to kind of go through the process?
Yeah, I think every film is different, even within genres. I think in my experience, the only one that's been really different was the musical. And that was because you kind of make it twice. You make the music and then you make the movie. And that was a very big learning curve for me on that one. And I had to take a break from even thinking about musicals, and I haven't done one since. And so, but it was a fun movie, because to see like Jennifer Hudson, you know, belting it out there was just, you know, it would stop everyone in their tracks to see that. So it was cool. It was really cool.
Coming from Klamath Falls, you know, and me from Eugene, you know, when I got to work in Hollywood, I got to work with some total legends, more so in the music industry than the film industry. But, you know, the whole Hollywood culture is that you can geek out a little bit, but you're supposed to kind of just be cool about it because everyone's coworkers. But inside, all the time I was, you know, it was like eight-year-old me going, "Oh crap! You know, I bought this guy's album, was like the first album I ever bought, and I've seen all their movies." And do you ever get the chance to kind of geek out a little bit with some of the people that you're working with? Because you know, do you ever kind of lean back and like, I went from, you know, fixing bikes to working with Tom Hanks. Like who follows an arc like that? You know, from one end of the spectrum to the other.
Yeah, I think the one sort of moment that sort of pops into my head where I was like, this is really cool, was it was just for like an hour or so, but it was on the movie Stoker that Nicole was in, but the director is a Korean director, kind of a legend there. But he had it was a Skype with Philip Glass, was doing some of the composing for the movie, and to hear them kind of rip off of each other, and you know, the director and a composer, was just a very exciting moment to watch. And so I was definitely geeking out there, that's for sure.
No, I'm going back old school here, but a long time ago I got to work with Bob Hope and Olivia Newton-John, and they were two of the coolest people I ever met in my entire life. We'd we'd do a shoot. We had to reshoot it, so we had to reset everything. Instead of Bob walking off and letting all the crew reset and go back to one, he got right out there with the rest of us and reset the props and stuff and kidding around with us and all that. And Olivia Newton-John was a real sweetheart. There's a couple of others that I wouldn't want to work with again. I'm not going to mention them, but it's a real mixed bag out there. And a lot of fun experiences, I'm sure, for anybody who's worked in the industry, and a lot of good memories and a couple of bad ones, I'm sure. Okay, back to you guys.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of musicians that I worked with from time to time where we weren't necessarily sad about it around the office when their album bombed. And then there were some that are total legends that had earned the right to be total jerks or ignore people, and yet they are some of the nicest people I've ever met in the world. You know, I will say among the people that I got to work with once was I got to work on one of Willie Nelson's albums. And Willie, you know, he's thought of as this nice guy, but as Bergen, I'm sure, can attest without naming any names, there's people who have the public persona and the personal persona, and the two are often widely contrast, where maybe it's marketing people involved to give people a certain public, almost like they're playing a character in public, where people get a perception of what kind of this celebrity is like. Willie was the most down-to-earth, genuine, nicest person in the world to everyone in the office, and it made everyone hope that his album did better and work that much harder on it. So I'm sure with some of the people that you've got a chance to work with, a few, like Tom said, you probably wouldn't want to work with again, and there's others that, despite all of their fame and fortune, they're still some of the just super nicest people that you've ever had a chance to work with, right, Bergen?
Yeah, I mean, and it makes me think, like, on beautiful day. Like Tom Hanks is just salt of the earth. He was just very gracious to everyone around him. He was inviting people to baseball games and hockey games, and he was done with the movie, and he'd already gone home to LA when the synagogue shooting happened in Pittsburgh. Why we were there, and he came back and helped organize a rally and spoke at it. And he's just a good person, and so you appreciate just those people wherever you find them. So
Perfect. Does anyone else have any questions for Bergen? We got a few minutes left, so I want to give a chance to open it up if people have more things they want to talk about.
Well, I had to smile when he said he started with an architectural background. I did the exact same thing in college. I was an architectural major with a theater minor, and then I flipped them midway through, and that's what cracked the door to get me in on at the Osmonds when Donnie Marie were on to do set dressing and set design. So I can relate to what he's saying about how your past experiences, even if they don't seem to relate to the industry, can relate to the industry and lead into it.
yeah, I think even James Ivory had it. He went to architecture school too, I believe. So
Bergen, you actually have almost paralleled James's career because he grew up in Klamath Falls. He went to the University of Oregon to pursue an architecture degree, and then moved to LA to try to get into the film industry. And then he moved to New York. He did have a long path in India there as well, but that's one of the most iconic independent filmmakers of all time. That not to call you a copycat or anything, but somehow you have tread down the same trail that James Ivory first blazed. So
yeah, and I've never met him. I've always thought about trying to reach out to him, but just never have.
Yeah. 91, I think 91 or 92 now, but he told us a little while ago that come hell or high water, because his family still owns a cabin at Lake of the Woods, and he comes home every summer to spend a week at Lake of the Woods. He says, even if I have to drive cross country, I'm still coming home if I can't fly. So he's determined to come home for a little bit, and every time he does, we try to line up a special screening of one of his films and a Q&A afterwards. So maybe when you come back, we can figure out a day and time when there isn't a global pandemic going on, and we can do an in-person screening of one of your films and talk about your experience. We'd love to have you at the Ross Ragland or the Pelican Cinema at some point doing that.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
Does anyone else have any questions for Bergen? Otherwise, we'll kind of wrap things up. I don't know, Bergen, is there anything about your career we haven't touched on yet that you want to talk about?
No, I think you've kind of hit everything. But if anyone has any, wants any help getting in the industry or anything I can do, I mean, it seems like a lot of you already have kind of already in it, but like I'm happy to help out however I can. So.
We always have a very eclectic group. It's everything from professional filmmakers and actors down to students and people who just want to make their TikToks look better and want some advice on Instagram and whatnot. So it's fun to be able to connect folks like that with someone like yourself who's been in the industry for 20 plus years and get that kind of dichotomy and realize, just because they've worked with Tom Hanks and Reese Witherspoon and Mark Ruffalo and all these people doesn't mean you still can't talk to them. So yeah, if people are curious about stuff, this is a guy that we can connect with. So do we have any other questions for Bergen? Otherwise, we all just kind of wrap things up and say good night. Let Bergen get to bed because he's on the East Coast.
With young kids.
Yeah, he's got a lot of bike riding to do. So going once, going twice. Oh, do we have someone join last second? No? Okay.
I think that was Wayne's microphone.
Okay. Well, in that case, I guess we will say goodnight and thank you so much, Bergen. Really appreciate it. It's great to reconnect with you, and I'm sure it's great for you to reconnect with Klamath Falls a little bit with your hometown. Good luck on all of your future projects. And as a reminder to all of our members, again, Klamath Film will be doing a film camp in August, a virtual film camp in partnership with Southern Oregon University. That is going to be limited to 20 participants, but it will be a week-long camp where we present all sorts of different details about how to make videos from home. And whoever makes the best film at the end of the week, their film will be included in the Klamath Independent Film Festival in September. And as a reminder, the Klamath Independent Film Festival will be September 18th through the 20th. We sincerely hope it will be in person. We are doing our absolute damnedest to make sure that that happens, in constant communication with the Ross Raglan Theater and with Pelican Cinema. But we are also exploring plan Bs that may be an online festival this year. It's the reality of the chaos that is 2020. So does anyone have any final comments?
I'd just like to say thank you. Oops.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the evening very much. Have a happy 4th.
Court had to leave early, but he also wanted to say thank you. He thoroughly enjoyed our talk tonight as well.
Happy 4th.
Yep.
Yeah, be safe out there. No one lose any fingers.
Okay.
I did too. From 10, I enjoyed the activities this evening.
Fantastic. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. We appreciate it. Tim, thank you for checking in from Portland. Thank you, Bergen, checking in from Vermont. And
Bye, Bergen.
Bye.
We do this on the first Thursday of every month from 6 to 8 p.m. We are trying to find a location to have meetings in person again and properly socially distanced. We were doing our meetings at the Waffle Hut downtown. Their conference room is shut down. We're talking to Mia's and Pia's, but that hasn't come into effect yet. So maybe in August we'll be able to meet in person. I'm working on that, but we'll just kind of have to play it by ear. So in the meantime, keep checking back to klamathfilm.org. We also have a Facebook group, Filming in Klamath. Wayne is very active in that group. Thank you for that. And thank you, Bergen. This has been wonderful to catch up. And when you get to Klamath Falls, let us know if there's any opportunity to meet up, maybe grab some food or at least say hi. So
Sounds good. Good talking to you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Later.